The investigating officer came to suspect there may have been obstruction on the part of OLG. What did you find related to that?
You know, we interviewed the OPP officer, and we took a step back and wondered whether we would pursue this course. And you know what? There's a point where we believe it wouldn't add anything to the investigation. I mean, if his complaint is he was obstructed by the OLG, it's quite likely he was. I mean, I don't have a problem accepting that as a point of argument. You know, we've concluded today, the bigger picture, that the OLG's oversight of retailers is non-existent. The OLG has turned a blind eye to allegations of crime for many years. There's likely in the area of tens of millions of dollars that have been paid to unscrupulous retailers. I mean, there's a point where you're digging the hole and it's so deep that you got to start looking at ways to dig yourself out of the hole instead of continuing to deep. I don't think, I think investigating the obstruction against the OPP would have been an interesting read, but I think when you look at what's recommended here, if adopted, that won't happen again.
You do recommend. Your recommendation number 18 about corporate investigations, what was your point there?
What we're recommending today is that the investigation of complaints of insider win be taken out of the hands of the OLG and into a regulatory body, that retailers be credited, that there be criminal checks on them, that there be a code of conduct, that there be secret shoppers out there. I think if this happened again, the police would not be dealing with the OLG, they would be dealing with this oversight body, and they would have a much different reaction. The problem with how the OLG dealt with allegations right now is that there was way too much hanky-panky between retailers and the OLG.
The fact that there was an allegation of obstruction takes it into a criminal realm, which is the ultimate accountability for the people who are there. Where's the accountability then for the OLG?
My role as an ombudsman is to fix systems, not to cause people to be fired or cause people to be charged criminally. What I propose today are measures that fix the system, that prevent this from happening again. There will not be an opportunity now for salespeople of the OLG to walk down to their friendly retailer and say, let me ask you a couple of questions. You say you won. Well, you bought it from the mall down the street, didn't you? Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And strangely enough, when we did look at these cases, we found out that retailers thought they were trap questions, so they actually didn't actually agree with the suggestion. But that's the kind of investigations that were conducted, and under the regime we're proposing today, that wouldn't happen.
Your investigation, you learned things that would cause you concern and suggest to you that, I mean, you said you think the officer may well be right about obstruction. Would you say publicly that there are things there that ought to be looked at?
I didn't look at seeing whether there was reasonable grounds to believe the obstruct justice or police investigation occurred, because that's not my function. All I'm saying to you is, even if you assume for the purpose of our argument it happened, it wouldn't have changed the role that I fulfill here as Ombudsman in proposing a regime that prevents this from happening. The OPP is free to pursue their investigation should they believe that there's reasons to pursue it. I'm not making recommendations in that direction.
How much responsibility do you think the government bears for these problems?
Well, I think, you know, you have to realize whenever government gets into crown corporation business, it's doing it for a very specific purpose. It wants to allow a government to act in an area what is traditionally, in this case, the domain of corporate commercial area. So you give crown corporations the leverage to operate like a private company. So you set up a board, the government's the shareholder, you give them as much latitude as possible to allow them to do the right thing. In this case, I think, I mean, I met with Minister Kaplan, and I certainly get the sense that he was floored to learn the findings that we brought to his attention. So I think the government in this case, did the government cut the OLG too much slack? Maybe. Is the government committed to reforming the system and perhaps making it the best in the world? Certainly, I would find that very encouraging. Beyond that, I think the responsibility here rests first and foremost with the OLG.
Si les détaillants peuvent continuer à jouer, comment est-ce que vous pouvez dire au public que ce genre de cas de fraude ne se produira plus?
Écoutez, dans le cas des détaillants, ils ne sont pas réglementés en ce moment. C'est c'est le laisser-faire. Il n'y a aucune dissuasion. Le système qu'on a proposé aujourd'hui crée cette dissuasion-là. Now, I'm asking French what is about banning retailers. I mean, we considered banning retailers. Well, we didn't do that for a few reasons. First of all, it sounds, the instrument of prohibition sounds like a rather blunt one when this area has remained totally loose and without any regulation. Do you want to kill a fly with a sledgehammer, throw the baby out with the bathwater? I mean, there's various ways to conceptualize it. I think that the relationship has been way too cozy over the years. And what we need to do is try a system to regulate it. I mean, retailers have been stealing for one good reason, because they can. Maybe we should make the atmosphere a little less encouraging. It's like saying people speed all the time, let's ban driving. I think we need to start enforcing. That's why today what we're proposing is a code of conduct for retailers. We're proposing pre-screening for criminal records. We're proposing continuing monitoring of their activity to ensure that they are deserving of acting as a retailer for OLG. We are recommending zero tolerance for fraud and theft. We're recommending that they be policed by an outside agency. We're recommending that if there's a dispute over winning, it be adjudicated by an independent body, not by the OLG. So I think that once you put in all those measures, you'll have a very different climate.
Did you find any evidence of fraudulent criminal behavior on the part of OLG staffers as opposed to the retailers?
No, not criminal activity. What I found was a very, very lax attitude towards retailer fraud. It seems to me that to allow, I mean, the atmosphere we now have is essentially an incestuous one, where you've got the retailer has a symbiotic relationship with the OLG rep, who then is the person investigating them, who leads them out during an investigation as opposed to leading it objectively. So I think it's morally reprehensible. As far as criminal activity, that of course is not my mandate, and I leave that to... on a décidé que bannir les détaillants, c'est une mesure excessive. Il y a d'autres moyens de s'attaquer au problème que de empêcher en utilisant une loi les détaillants de jouer les jeux de loterie. Maintenant, le climat, c'est un climat de laisser-faire. C'est pas un climat où il y a des contraintes. C'est pas un climat qui décourage les fraudes et les vols. Le climat qu'on a proposé aujourd'hui, c'est un climat qui décourage ce genre de comportement. You know, all these things we're proposing today, when we initially proposed it to the OLG, there was a lot of pushback. Oh, we can't do criminal investigation checks. We don't want to register retailers. There was a lot of pushback because they didn't see that as being their business. Their business is sales, profits. It bears in mind that all the money that comes into the OLG, all the money that's funneled in, it's not government money, it's not OLG money. This is money that goes to charities, goes to hospitals. So when you write a check, $12.5 million check to an unscrupulous retailer, someone in a charity somewhere ain't going to get that money. And so it's important to keep in mind, this is not OLG money. It's not consolidated revenue money for the government. It goes into those causes. That's why we need to strengthen the system.